Good morning, everyone. Delighted to be with you, and I hope for the next.
Recording in progress.
Hi, Aaron.
Recording in progress.
I'm not sure why we're getting all of that.
Can we get rid of that?
Just
Yeah.
okay. Just as I was about to say, I'm hoping it will be a calming session. We have that. But the technical gremlins are always there. Yes, I just want to tell you a little bit about the Royal School of Needlework, because we are really very multidimensional in many ways, and we teach from degree, which we've got here in the top left, and for the degree they're exploring stitch and then developing it off in many new and exciting ways, whereas for our other courses that it's perhaps more what you would recognize in terms of two-dimensional, really technical embroidery. But we start from really believing that embroidery is there to be enjoyed. And so we also have youth groups, and you can see bottom left, in fact, we have one of our degree students here. He's now graduated, but he was leading one of our family days here a few years ago. And again, you can see the little boy there who's actually getting started in stitch. And as was mentioned, we did work on 9 pieces altogether for the coronation. And this was the major piece, which was the Queen's robe of estate, which was the train that she wore as she left Westminster Abbey. Here we have part of the team that worked on it for this particular photograph. But again, men and women, all of whom have trained at the Royal School of Needlework, for which we are known for, again, technical excellence. And just a couple of the other pieces that we had for the coronation, the anointing screen, which I have to say I was very fortunate to actually see again on Monday evening, and it was really fantastic to see it as a whole, and to learn a bit more about it from the many people who were actually involved in working on this, not just the RSN. But for once, we actually worked with a digital stitch producer, and he could tell us that the digital part of this alone had 1.3 million stitches on it. Now you can understand why we put it out to be done digitally, because working on 8 other pieces, that was quite a lot of work. But all the birds, the leaves, the angels and the dove, the cipher and the motto, all those were done by hand by the team at the RSN. And for the king, we worked on, as well as the chair he's sitting in, we did the crest, the girdle, the belt, and the stole that he's wearing. We made those. And for Her Majesty the Queen, as I said, the robe of the state, the train that we made. So now these are very much the kind of top end. It's what the RSN is known for, and this was actually our 5th coronation. But at our heart, it is about knowing the value of stitch as something that is therapeutic, particularly if you are not doing it to any kind of deadline, then you can just engage with it. And we see this time and time again, that even as people come to the RSN, they kind of come in and they pause and they breathe. And through the lesson, through the time that they can undertake stitch, they will actually breathe differently. And then at the end of the day, they pack up and go away, and they're back into their normal lives, and everything is you know, the usual manic self. But it is that moment. Now, that's what we see when we see people coming here. And in fact, one person actually said to us that the slow repetition of making each stitch can be calming, even meditative. And we believe in that very much, that while people are focused on the stitching, they can actually let other things just drift, and they can be focused into the moment. And that's really important. And that, you know, many people can engage with that. And for therapeutic stitch, it doesn't matter about it being the neatest, the tidiest, and all the things that we might be more important when we're doing some major commission. But for people who are having a go, it is about simply sharing and simply approaching the individual stitches. And here, this is a sort of typical kind of class. Here's someone just experimenting with the different stitches. So the classic way is to have a hoop, and they're playing. She's got 3 different lines, and they're stitched in 3 different stitches, just to see how it looks. So, you know, not everything has to be worked to achieve a finished goal. It's really about the participation that is so important. And as I say, we really engage with younger people as well. So we've had a number of family days and school days, and it's great to see them getting engaged. And as you can see, the little girl on the left is, she's been seduced by the camera. The little girl on the right, oh no, she's too busy. She's concentrating on what she is actually doing. And that's just terrific for us. So this was a recent day that we undertook. And again, we believe stitch is gender neutral. So we open it out for schools, and it's to boys and girls. We don't want any saying, oh, this is only available to one gender, not at all. Because we know the history of stitch, and both girls and boys, men and women have stitched through history. So we're really about encouraging that. And as I say, the fantastic thing is when children get engaged, or anybody gets engaged with stitch, the comments that come back to us are about quietness. And in fact, we had a teacher who wrote to us and said they were doing a stitch project. My colleagues, the other teachers, are jealous because they walk past my classroom and it is quiet, because the children get so engaged with what they are doing that they don't actually realize that they've shut up and that they're being quiet. So this is the power that stitch can have, and it can be incredibly calming in that way. Now, we have known about the therapeutic aspect of stitch really since the First World War. And during that time, we worked with a number of institutions that were being sort of set up to offer sort of convalescence, occupational therapy to people who were returning, whether they were physically or mentally shattered and were in hospital. Stitch was one of those opportunities for people to do something different. And in fact, this, just yes, click there. This is in St. Paul's Cathedral. This was worked by soldiers and sailors who returned from the First World War and were in hospital. And the RSN designed it, and the RSN brought it all together. But the individual motifs were worked by individual soldiers and sailors. And, you know, it was tremendous. St. Paul's had it on display again between 2014 and 2018 in remembrance of the centenary of the First World War. So absolutely a tremendous thing. So again, it's about believing that people can build up and have real skills to be able to achieve something like this. During the Second World War, we then took that even further. And this was from our 150th anniversary exhibition that was last year, 2022. And the picture in the background is the same that you saw in the little booklet before. And this is, again, recuperating, in this case, soldiers, sailors and airmen. And there were two types of stitching that they did. One was on canvas, and we can see canvases on the deck chair on the right-hand side, and the other was surface stitching. And for that, we had put together some special packs. So we were asked by HM Services to put together all of the different regimental badges into sewing kits. And we know that these were distributed both to some of those returning soldiers and sailors, but also they went out to prisoners of war. So again, they were an occupation that they could do. And even if it wasn't their own regiment when they were a prisoner of war, it was something that helped them feel part of the bigger picture and gave them occupation that could, again, be calming. Because at this time, the then principal, Lady Smith-Dorrien, she actually sent a press release out to all the Allied countries. And she said, don't knit, stitch, because she recognised that when people get very good at knitting, they can almost knit on automatic pilot. And in a way, that's not helpful. It was helpful in producing the socks, but not helpful in helping the individual to kind of be calm, because they would still be worrying because they were doing the automatic knitting. And instead, she said, if you stitch, then you need to focus on what you are doing. And that can help mind and body to heal, because other parts are calm and not being kind of so stressed. And this is very good. And again, today we have many examples from our regular students who say the same thing, sometimes to the point of saying, I don't realise how long. I think I'm going to go and do 2 hours. And then I realised half a day has gone, because they get so absorbed within it. But you don't need to apply all of that time. And I will give you some examples in a moment. Because the other thing about stitching that many people actually found during lockdown was that it is something that you could actually pick up and put down. And the amount of equipment that you need is very limited. Now, you may have seen the pictures that I've shown where some of them had large frames. But to start with, you just need to have a simple hoop like we have in the picture here, and some fabric and a needle and thread. And really, you don't need much more than that. You can have lots of different types of thread. These are cotton threads, and you know, again, and lots of colours. But you can start with something simple. And of course, you need some needles. And it depends on the fabric you've got as to which kind of needle you have. These are actually tapestry needles, and these are for working on a canvas. They don't even need to have a sharp point, because the canvas already has a hole in it, so you can use the needles very simply. And again, they can be used with all sorts of different age groups. So what we have done is we have put together 25 kits, and we're going to make these available to people who are listening into to this event. And there'll be, at the end of my talk, there's going to be an email address that you can use to send for one. So in that, you're going to get a hoop, piece of fabric with either the word calm or love, and I'll come back to that in a minute, some needles and some threads. And these are all threads that have been donated to us by people who perhaps have had to stop stitching now, and they give us threads. So each pack will be different, with different colours and different types of thread. But mostly I think they're woolen threads. And the advantage of woolen threads is that they're slightly thicker, so they're easier to start with. And the idea is that you will be able to just have a go and see how you get on. And again, you can have more than one person having a go on it and just trying. And what we're suggesting is that you stitch the outline. Now, the two words that we have chosen that we've been working on with our family groups are calm and love. And we thought that those would be appropriate words. And one of the things you might be able to do is you can stitch on the outline and then put some different stitches to infill, just as a starting point. And if you want to, you can put some kind of border around. And if you think, gosh, I'm not sure I know enough stitches to do all of that, well, help is at hand, because we have what is known as the RSN Stitch Bank. And the RSN Stitch Bank is online, and you can just go into that and click on it, and it will come up with stitches. And if you know the name of a stitch, or you've heard of a stitch, you can look at that. So here, for example, we've got a chain stitch, and it will show you how to do chain stitch. It actually gives you a little bit of history, but there's actually a video that will show you how to do it. And there's even pictures. So if you can't follow a video, you can look at pictures and see how you do it. And if you wanted to think, oh, I want an infill stitch, well, again, you can click on it and it will give you lots of different infill stitches that you can have a go at. So you've got 4 letters in the word calm or love. You could have different infill stitches for each one of them. And again, these are all on RSN Stitch Bank, so they're easy to access and to have a go and have a look at them. Because stitch can actually be many different things. There are many different types of stitching. And as you can see here, we've got a group of ladies sitting at the back who are having a go at a project, but all the things that you can see in the front have also been stitched. So you can have a go at different things and then build up your kind of skills. And I mentioned canvas work, and I've got a piece of canvas here on the right-hand side. You can see there all the holes. That's why you don't need a pointed needle, really, because you're filling in all of that space. But I do rather like this couple that we've got on the left-hand side, because they are worked in canvas work. And they date from the 18th century. They're part of the RSN collection. But it just shows you, again, the fun of what you can do. And here we have something that shows use of colour. Back in the days when they didn't have very, very many shades, we have many more shades today. So you could do that with more shading. But I just think they look charming, this musical couple. And your canvas work, it's most familiar for larger scale things like cushions, as we've got here, and for covers for stools, that kind of thing, something very practical. And so it's often, again, it's perhaps the most repetitive of stitches, because you're probably working the same stitch over the whole of a canvas. So if you really just want to concentrate on one stitch, then you can start with canvas work. But if you want to have a go at something else, we have a set of kits that you can look at. And the advantage of these is that you don't have to come to Hampton Court Palace to try them. You can do these at home, and these can be undertaken at any time. Even if you've only got 10 minutes of quiet, that's your time, you can do them, because you're sent the kit and the materials, and then there's a downloadable online video that you can look at. and you can keep going back to it as many times as you like. So you can just do one little bit at a time. And so even if you have just the shortest of time for yourself, perhaps as a carer, you can do that, something like this, and build it up over time, because you have a year-long access to the video, and even if you don't finish in that time, you can ask for an extension, so that you can just do it and just try something for yourself and experience that calming moment of just being able to do the repetition of the stitching that really, as I say, can be meditative. So this one is a technique known as Jacobean crewel work. It's also worked with in wool, and we always suggest people start with this one because it has many stitches. So in order for you to grow your stitch repertoire for future things, it's a very good one to start with, because you'll try different things. And here you can see some different infill stitches. For example, we've got seed stitch on the flower over here as one of the infill stitches. And don't worry about knowing all the stitch names. Again, that all is given to you. But that's just one of the different types of embroidery. And I think different people enjoy and like having a go at different types of embroidery. So these are some of the other kits, which are what we refer to as the self-paced classes, because they're for each individual to just have a go. And then we do also actually have a Facebook group for people doing the self-paced ones. So again, you can confer with others and see how they're getting on, but just at the time that you have available. So let me take you through some of the other techniques, because you might find something that appeals to you even more. So we start with black work, and black work is a counted thread technique. So you have a linen and you count the threads to know where to put the next step. And what you're actually doing is using some geometric patterns. So you can see quite a lot of different patterns are being used in this. And it's also by using thicker and thinner thread that you can get it to look much lighter here on the puffin's breast, or much darker, so here on the neck. So you're using two things, different patterns and different thicknesses of threads to get the overall effect. Or we have gold work. Now, this is the kind of work that we were doing on the Queen's robe of estate. This is an introduction to gold work. So we've got different types of approach, but we repeat them so that you can really learn what you are working on. And I think the flower looks very attractive there. So gold work, again, you're mostly laying the fabric, the thread on the top of the fabric, and then you hold it down. So all of these little stitches that you can see over here are known as couching stitches, because they hold the gold thread in place. Again, we're using lots of different threads here, which makes it more fun. Or here's a modern take on Jacobean crewel work with a much more modern theme to it, with our lovely elephant reaching up to take the fruit from the trees, but being surrounded also by the monkeys. But again, a variety of different stitches are incorporated in this. This might be fun to make for a younger family member. Canvas work. Now, we actually know that you can do many stitches in canvas work. You don't just have to do one. So if you like canvas work, but you want to explore it a bit more, we have the toucan, which, because of all the different stitches, adds texture to the piece that you are creating. Yeah, adds a lot of fun, as well as you can see all the different stitches that we've got in the background as well there. Now, this is definitely getting to a more complex technique. It is known as stump work, as raised embroidery. And you can actually see that those leaves are actually not directly attached onto the background fabric, that they are proud of that. And our person here, our huntsman, is padded. So this is something to kind of move on to in terms of technique. But again, just makes something completely different. And for many people, it's the colouring that you've got in this, which just adds to the joy of working on something. And our final technique is silk shading. And this is where you have something in a way quite simple, the simple flower, but it's the way that you add in the colour that can really make it stand out and look three-dimensional, and as though you could pick that flower and smell that flower, which really sort of adds to it. And this very much, I think, is, again, repeated stitch, because the actual technique is almost all the same, apart from the knots in the centre. So it's known as long and short, but it is that repetition of keeping working smaller and larger stitches with different shades, different colours, so that you build up the leaves as a whole. So those are the different techniques that we have. And as I say, many people find different techniques that really work for them. And that's the one to kind of have a look at and have a go at. But at the heart, as I said earlier, the key part is to just enjoy participating and having a go at stitch, because it really can be calming and just give you a kind of moment of space in a sort of otherwise busy and crowded day. And that is something that many of our students appreciate, particularly those who themselves have had mental health issues, really appreciate being able to take out their stitching just as that moment of calm. And it really is for all generations. This is a photograph from a family day that we held at the Fashion and Textile Museum. And you can see there are all different generations there, and they're all having a go. There's a gentleman over here, there's a young girl there starting, there's another young girl that's really got focused into it. And I think that's her mum watching on, not herself stitching, but really watching on at how fascinated her daughter is. And we've got an older lady here, we can see from her hair. And yeah, just all generations. So sometimes we have 3 generations of the same family working, and men and women and girls and boys all taking part in it, because they some might have done it in the past but hadn't done it for a long time, and so they were all willing to and enthusiastic to have a go. So as I say, we've got 25 kits that are available. So if you'd like to have a go, these are free of charge. All you have to do is to send us an email. And so here are the details. So if you send your email to Gillian Williams, then first 25 we will send. You can request calm or love, but when we run out of one, we'll just send out the other one. And I've also just put up there information about the self-paced courses and finding out more about those if you would like to. So I hope that has introduced a moment of calm and given you a thought of something else that might just help people to have a go, and as I say, to remember the kind of intergenerational aspect of it, because it's a great way of bringing families together without them even realizing that, because for many people they haven't had a go, and it's just something fun to actually work on together. Okay, I'll just leave that up a moment, but before I stop sharing, but then I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Susan. That's really fascinating. Some really, really amazing work. And as a number of people have mentioned in the chat, this takes them back to things they haven't done for a long time. So for all the people here who are part of the conference, this is a kind of reminder of how they might find a bit of time and space and what they could be doing in that time. And that's really lovely, really lovely. So, and particularly, as you say, for carers, people who have to find carve out spaces of time, having something to go to can be a draw to be able to find that moment and make even just a little bit of progress. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for the stitch packs. I'm sure there'll be a run on those, and we'll be posting that address on it'll be on the recording, which will be available to participants after the event, obviously, but also it'll be posted on the whiteboard over lunchtime. So Susan, this is something that clearly for carers might be a really good thing. Do you think there's a way of kind of bringing people back in touch with things they used to do in terms of people who are suffering from dementia, but you need a degree of dexterity to be able to do it?
Yes, I think obviously it depends on degree, but I think people who still have an element of dexterity, it is an opportunity. And again, thinking about the ages of many people with dementia, they may well have done this as a younger person, and so it is part of them remembering and having a go, but it is also why I suggested possibly starting for some of them with canvas work, because again, you haven't then got a pricky needle, you've got a rounded end needle, to put it in simple terms, and just then, it's not about actually achieving anything really, it's about the process. So just the stitching on canvas, perhaps changing the colours and doing something like that is a very simple thing to do, which can, I think, be enjoyed by people with dementia. We were going to be having a class here at the RSN for a dementia group. Alas, for reasons not to do with us, it had to be cancelled externally, or else I'd have been able to give you more kind of detail, as it were, from that. But they haven't managed to reschedule it yet. So that is certainly something that we would like to be able to do. And as I say, it just taking that forward. But certainly for carers, we would like to think of carers even if it's only 10 minutes a day, just having that moment to themselves. And this, once you've got started, then this is just something you can just pick it up and just do for a little minute, and then the minute you can put it down, it's very quick to put down as well. It's not lots to put away, it's just simple.
Thank you. That's great. Now, I noticed that Sarah has a question, and I switched off your sharing screen so I could see you better. I hope that's okay with you.
That's absolutely fine, yes.
Sarah, would you like to ask your question? Can't hear you.
Start again. Dr. Susan, it was completely fantastically interesting and really inspirational. Having been a carer myself, and I know we have carers watching and we have people with dementia watching, I just thought that your idea of it is quite true that you have to get absorbed in this process and to be able to just snatch a few minutes. But there are a couple of things I wanted to ask, actually. One, I think it's perfect for carers, absolutely ideal, for the reasons you've said. For carers who are looking after their loved one with dementia, assuming the person with dementia has the required dexterity of some description and eyesight that could cope, what could you just give some tips about what is the easiest thing for them to try? Is it a canvas thing? Is it, I have no idea.
Okay, so I think the easiest thing would be a piece of canvas, which is the one that's got the holes already in it.
Yeah.
And some people work in what's known as in the hand, but we do find that it is easier if you have it in a hoop. And you can get hoops of different sizes, that's up to about 10 inches.
Yeah.
And then again, not being fussy, you can put a knot in the threads, and then you just do what's known as tent stitch, which
Yeah.
can it's just going in a diagonal. If you think of an old-fashioned tent that went in that kind of shape, well, you're
Yeah.
just looking at that diagonal, and which again, you can go to Stitch Bank and it will show you how to do it, but
Yeah.
that's all you're doing. And it's very simple, but it is that repetitive process. And you can do one row in one color, you can do one row in a different color, and so on.
Yes. And also, I was very taken with the point you made about multi-generational. And we know that generally it is the case that people with dementia react very well to children. So I'm just thinking about whether there are family projects that could go on, you know, I'm just thinking a bit laterally there.
Yes.
And also we have a group joining. We have a group of carers watching this, and people with dementia, and just thinking maybe there are group projects that people could work, like that wonderful, beautiful, exquisite tapestry in St Paul's. Well, they're all exquisite, of course. Where people working together as a group producing a bigger whole. Could you tell us about an example of that? Well, obviously that tapestry is an example.
Yes, I think things like that, if you're going to do something on the bigger scale, you kind of have to have something kind of coordinated so that lots of people know what they're doing to take part in something like that. And sort of come back to that. But you know, it would certainly be possible to be able to kind of put together a whole series of elements, and then they can all be worked separately, and then they're brought together into something at the end. Yes.
How wonderful. Thank you. I don't want to spend any more time.
We're just nearly at the end there, Susan, but I've got a question which I think you might be able to answer quite quickly from Sharon, who's asking where we can secure information about tutors or experts who could start off in supporting work with people living with dementia or carers. So I don't know whether your project about working with people with dementia might be able to provide some resources or something. What would be best for them to do?
Right. Well, we do have a little bit of expertise at the RSM. We are also trying to kind of grow our expertise in this area, but we do have one or two colleagues who've got some of that expertise. So by all means, come through to me or use the Gillian.Williams address that you saw on the screen, and write to Gillian, and then we'll look at what we can help with.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. I think it's prompted some really, really great thinking and some really kind of ideas about what people might be able to do. So thank you very much indeed, Susan, for your time today. It's been really interesting, and the amazing skill that people have is just extraordinary. So we look forward to seeing more of that in the future, but we hope to be in contact with you perhaps more about projects with the Royal School of Needwork in the future. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.